Hello everybody, I'm Ramsis.
And I'm the Vespor.
We're here for another edition of Back in Time, episode number 31. Please don't forget to
like, comment, subscribe, and
ring that bell so we can bring you many more where this came from. Today we're going to be taking a look back at The Naked Gun, the 1988 spoof-filled action comedy movie directed by David Zucker and written by Jerry Zucker, Jim Abrams, David Zucker, and Pat Proft. Released 1988 by Paramount Studios.
Now, if you're not familiar with this, we're once again going to go with our Q&A format for these movies. And we're going to give our thoughts on the movie by asking each other a question. One will ask, the other will answer, and then the other will give their own response to that question.
Yep, and we'll just keep going back and forth until we've completed all the questions, and that way we've taken a fun look back at the movie. This is one of those movies that everyone should have seen, especially if you are a fan of our channel. And if you haven't seen it, well, it's not too late. Pause our video and then come back in 85 minutes, and then we will continue where we left off. For everyone else, pretty much the majority of everyone else has seen it, let's get to the review. So first we're going to give a little bit of a background on the characters, because we're going to be doing a lot of discussions on the characters. And again, we're going to mention this is a spoiler-filled Q&A. We are assuming you've seen this or you don't care about the plots being given away as we reveal everything and anything that comes to mind.
And there are 5 main characters, starting with Leslie Nielsen as Lieutenant Frank Drebin.
And again, I want to believe that everybody watching this knows who Leslie Nielsen is, but I'm not going to take for granted that everyone knows who Leslie Nielsen is. He is greatly missed, one of my favorite actors of all time, a comedic genius who did not start out as a comedic genius. Leslie Nielsen, one of the most old-time actors. He was in all these serious roles. He did a lot of B-movies. He was everywhere and anywhere, but he was in very, very serious and straight-laced roles until a funny movie called Airplane. Airplane is what started his road into parody. And it was, again, the people who made this movie, Zucker, Abrams, and Zucker. They're known as Zaz. They did a 1980s movie called Airplane, and the rest is history. He played one of the funniest characters ever. And ever since then, he's only been in comedic roles until the day he died. So Leslie Nielsen, one of the greatest actors. He is so greatly missed. Resume a mile long. He's probably in so many comedies that you probably remember, and he was in plenty of movies from yesteryear. So Leslie Nielsen's playing the straight and serious cop, but everything goes wrong for him because he's bumbling pretty much. He's a lieutenant detective. He is part of a group called Police Squad, a very special section of the police force of LA, and they are sent to do the most important missions. Frank Drebin is just very well intended, believes heavily in his job, really believes in truth, justice, and the American way, but he's bumbling. I think that explains it best.
In this world, it's a parody world, so he doesn't get immediately thrown in jail or arrested for doing some of the things he's done. That's what makes this so special. Next up is George Kennedy as Captain Ed Hocken. Actor George Kennedy Jr. was a very serious actor, much like Leslie Nielsen. He starred in all of these wonderful movies like Cool Hand Luke, Shenandoah, Fly of the Phoenix, In Harm's Way. We can go on and on, but he's also done some comedy because he was also in McHale's Navy, and he was much like Leslie Nielsen, a very serious actor turned comedic actor, at least for this movie. A very important character that you will see through a lot of this movie.
He plays the very important role. Like, he's friends with Frank, but he's also the boss at the same time. But it's kind of weird because he's not like a serious and forceful boss. He's kind of like well, I'm the captain, I gotta sort of enforce it. But then every time Frank sort of breaks the rules, he's like, well, we support you. It's a very weird dynamic because he's technically the captain, but at the same time, he supports Frank in everything he's doing fully without question. And it's a very important dynamic because you need someone of an authority to allow Frank to be in all these situations. Otherwise, there'd be no reason why he's allowed. So very important. And I think the most notable name besides Leslie Nielsen is in this movie. And he really doesn't even have that big a role. When you watch this movie, you're like, oh yeah, he was in it, but he gets bigger roles in the second and third movie. In this movie, he's kind of like at the beginning and end, and that's really it. But it is, yes, O.J. Simpson, who plays Frank Drebin's best friend, Detective Nordberg. And we're not really going to talk much about the notoriousness of O.J. Simpson, because that's not what we're here for, but it should be known, O.J. Simpson, very famous football player, 11 seasons with the Buffalo Bills, and that's what originally he was known for, but he had such a great charismatic personality that they started throwing him into commercials, and then they started putting him into movies and acting, and lo and behold, he got this very interesting part, 1988 in Naked Gun, and then he did all the sequels, And then right after that third sequel, a very famous situation happened where unfortunately he was involved in a criminal trial where he wound up being acquitted for the murders of his former wife, Nicole Brown, and the friend of Nicole Brown, Ron Goldman. And that's unfortunately what O.J. Simpson's career became very well known for. But I will say he played the Nordberg character very, very well in this movie. And that's what we're going to review. We're not going to talk about his notoriousness. We're going to talk about the character of Nordberg. After the credits, the movie starts with Nordberg. And he's on a very important case. He's in a boat, he's exploring, and then he gets pretty much beat up very badly by gunshots. And the whole story then takes place because we see the criminal right there. They actually reveal the criminal to the audience right there. And then Nordberg's pretty much position is being in a bed the whole time, moaning and groaning as Frank Drebin beats him up in the bed accidentally, not meaning to hurt him. And the story takes place there. So really, Nordberg doesn't have much of a role in this movie, but in the later movies, he will become a focal character.
You are wrong. His role in this entire movie is to be a punching bag and a plot device to further the story.
So now, every lead actor needs a love interest, doesn't they, Vespor?
That's right. And that love interest is Priscilla Presley. Her most famous role is being the daughter of Elvis. Now, she's done music, and she was on Dallas, which was probably her biggest role, although if you're into comedic roles, this is the one you're going to know her for. In her heyday, was a very beautiful woman and filled the role of Jane Spencer. Jane Spencer comes out hot and heavy, and they are on it with her. She's supposed to be love interest, the secretary of the villain who the hero falls in love with. But since this is a parody movie, they do this at warp speed in about 15 minutes where they fall in love. And another person that you would never guess in this movie, Ricardo Montalban as Vincent Ludwig, the villain of this. Believe me, he blows it away here because they need somebody like him to make you believe he's actually a bad guy. You can have bumbling heroes, but somebody has to be a real threat, and it is Ricardo Montalban's portrayal.
This is one of the situations where an actor we're talking about is not more well known for Naked Gun, because all the others we did are more well known for Naked Gun. He's actually more well known for Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, and the Star Trek television series playing... He was also in all the Planet of the Apes movies. And what is the other show he is very famous for? That would be Fantasy Island, yes. He was the grandfather of Spy Kids. So what a brilliant choice to put in the role, because what they were trying to do is get actors that are not known for their comedic roles, known for their serious roles. And Ricardo Montalban always played a very straight-laced, a very serious businessman, a very serious gentleman. He was always in the serious roles. And then they put him in as Vincent Ludwig, and suddenly, yes, now he's in a comedic movie. And again, he plays it straight-laced. Even in this comedic movie, he's playing it very seriously, but it works so well because he's playing off of all the characters around him. And pretty much this character's purpose is he's the villain, but we, the audience, know from day one that he's the villain. They don't hide this from us. They hide this from everyone else until some of the funniest scenes happen, which we're going to get to in our Q&A, that unfolds his real motives and what's going on here. So what a brilliant casting, but Ricardo Montalban is the main villain. Now, before we go to the movie, we should just mention there are so many cameos. We should just quickly list out some of these cameos, because it's brilliant just how many people they snuck into this movie. They have Weird Al Yankovic, of course, on the airplane. They have all these announcers from actual baseball: Kurt Gowdy, Jim Palmer, Tim McCarver, Mel Allen, Dick Enberg, Dick Vitale, and of course, who do they have sitting next to them, Vespor?
Dr. Joyce Brothers.
One of the funniest moments there.
And there's also Reggie Jackson.
Queen has a big role, but is it the Queen of England, Vespor?
Oh, it's not the Queen of England. It's Jeanette Charles.
There you go. So that is the other actors. And the mayor, too, we won't leave you out, Nancy mentioned. So there you go. Just so you can't say, oh, we left people out. All right, Vespor, I think we explained everything. I think it is finally time to start our Q&A. So now we're going to start out with the first question. And if something has to be elaborated on, we will do that during any of the questions that we have. Is that fair, Vespor?
Yes.
And now let's begin our Q&A questions. What was it like the first time you saw The Naked Gun, Vespor?
First time I saw this movie was with my parents, believe it or not, on this little thing called HBO. And they loved this. They wanted me to watch something with them because I was older at the time when this came out. And we sat together and we laughed our butts off. The sight gags were pertinent. The jokes were mostly clean, although there was some very good hard R in there that was absolutely hilarious that I really didn't get until I was a little bit older in high school there. And for the most part, it was an absolute laugh riot. And this was honestly my first real introduction to Leslie Nielsen in a comedic role, because the first time I saw him was in Forbidden Planet, because I absolutely love sci-fi movies. Once I learned about Leslie Nielsen in this movie, I went to go ahead and watch Airplane and all the other ones that he was associated with. And he was such a wonderful actor that I fell in love with his movies, because he always made me laugh with his humor and his body language while telling the jokes.
I remember seeing this with an old school friend. Oh yes, we were at his house. We were looking for something to rent, and he picked Naked Gun. I never saw it, even though I should have, because it's such an amazing movie. So we were both like, "Oh, Naked Gun, that should be funny." A lot of people were talking about it. I think it was 1989 that we saw it was on VHS. We popped it in, and I remember I was cracking up so much during this whole entire movie. I couldn't stop laughing. I was really rolling on the floor. My friend was not as laughing because I think he didn't want to show that he was laughing, but he was enjoying it. Some of the scenes had me in stitches, and they still do to this day. To this day, I still laugh at some of the scenes in this movie. Not as much because I know the movie so well, but I remember so well. I was like, oh my god, this is the funniest thing I've ever seen. I was in love with Leslie Nielsen from that moment. I had to watch all his stuff, and sadly, no, he's never matched the brilliance of Naked Gun. Airplane is probably the closest he ever came, and he did that before this movie, but Naked Gun by far was Leslie Nielsen's most brilliant performance, and I was a fan from then on. Everything Naked Gun, I loved it. I couldn't get enough of it. And then once I bought it, I must have weared that tape out because I watched it so many times. And then I got it on DVD, and now I have it on Blu-ray, and then you watch it online, and you watch it on cable. It's just one of those movies you just can't stop watching. Every single time it comes on, Naked Gun, all right, the world has to stop. I gotta watch this again. You know all the lines, you know all the scenes, but so what? Your eyes are glued. All from this first time that I saw it, Vespor. So yes, it was the most amazing experience I think I had, and it started me into my interest in comedy. You know, you don't realize at a young age, like, oh, what's my favorite genre? And then you realize, oh, comedy, yes. Because if you're laughing that much at this movie, you know that it hits a special place in your heart. And we can't wait to tell you more about our feelings of this movie. So yes, that was my first time seeing the movie.
All right, so now let's move on. Question number 2. So Ramses, what was your favorite scene of the movie?
So that is easy. And we're not going to mention the climax. Everyone loves the climax. We're going to mention a scene besides that. My favorite scene is when the doctor is trying to help Norberg, and then the henchman pushes the button, and the doctor now is zombified, and he's trying to kill Norberg. And then Drebin runs in, and then the craziest chase I think I've ever seen in a movie happened. The Naked Gun car chase is one of the funniest scenes ever, because the doctor steals the car. He's like, medical emergency, he steals the car. Frank Drebin, what car does he get? He gets into the car with Stephanie, the student driver, and the most straight-laced British instructor saying, no, Stephanie, this is how you do it. And then she really gets into it. She's going down the wrong way of a one-way street.
It's okay. Normally, you would not be going 65 down the wrong way of a one-way street.
A gun shootout is happening. She rolls up the window, and then suddenly...
Go for it, Stephanie.
But then what happens after that? The car, the doctor explodes. It then gets destroyed. He's driving on the hood of the car. He's then on a rocket that leads right into a fireworks factory that explodes after the missile exploding. And then what does Frank say?
All right, move on. Nothing to see here. Please disperse. Nothing to see here, please.
It is the best 2 minutes of your life, folks. If you're going to just watch one moment, besides the baseball scene, one moment of the movie, you must watch the car chase scene with Stephanie and the doctor that ends in the explosion. That is my favorite scene of the whole entire movie.
Well, obviously, the best part about this entire movie, which makes you go, what am I watching here? Why is this in Beirut? This is Police Squad. This is supposed to be in LA. Why do I see Idi Amin, Gaddafi, the Ayatollah, Yasser Arafat, Fidel Castro, and Mikhail Gorbachev in this room? They're going to plot to bring down the United States, terrorist acts, and all the while insulting the American people in front of this strange person whose hand starts shaking? Well, that's Frank Drebin, and he's going to beat the crap out of the worst people in the world.
I knew it.
And it is such a glorious scene because he is spreading the power of freedom, but not for the reasons that you think. He's actually there on vacation because his wife left him. But the best part of this scene is right there at the end after he's beaten the crap out of all the bad guys. There's tons of sight gags in here, is when they ask him,
Hey, who are you? I'm Lieutenant Frank Drebin, Police Squad. And don't ever let me catch you guys in America.
oh yes, this is great, and then it starts in right there on the iconic opening of that wonderful police siren going down the street.
All right, Vespor, it's my turn to ask a question. And my question, I think you're going to get a kick out because they're not a big cast, but enough that this will be pertinent. Who was your favorite supporting character? So that means you can't pick Frank Drebin. You got to pick one of the other characters, supporting character. And it could be any character in the movie that actually had more than 1 second of time in the movie, all right? That's what the basis of this.
Well, we here at Vespors Retro Reviews are not afraid to face controversy. My favorite supporting character was actually Detective Nordberg, because we don't look at the people, we look at their characters, and Detective Nordberg was hilarious. He got the entire movie going, and some of the things he was saying, trying to be real about it, then Frank always misinterpreting everything he says.
Drugs.
Hey, nurse. Quick, give this man some drugs. Quick, can't you see he's in pain?
Heroin. Heroin, Frank. Nordberg, that's a pretty tall order. You're gonna have to give me a couple of days on that one.
Just one build up after the other. Every time you see him, he's getting punched, beat, destroyed, and you gotta have somebody that's the character's best friend. And so thank you, Nordberg, for being that best friend that gets into trouble all the time and needs some help.
All right, I'm going to go with someone that we didn't really talk about. Ed Williams played Ted. Ted is the lab tech. He plays the role of Q from James Bond movies, where he's coming up with all these inventions, and then the most ridiculous inventions, except for the last one that he gives him, which is the cufflinks, that comes into play. So Frank is trying to tell Ted, oh, well, what'd you find? And he's like, oh, just a moment, Frank, I want to show you all these ridiculous inventions I made. So he shows him the Swiss Army shoe, where all these ridiculous weapons come out of the shoe. And they said, no, let me show you something else. And then he points outside and says, oh, we have an anti-graffiti wall. Let's see how that works. And suddenly the wall is spraying back at the criminals. And then he's like, oh, I have another invention. Let me show you these cufflinks.
You see these cufflinks I'm wearing? Well, they're not just cufflinks. Each one fires a single pin-sized dart that knocks out your victim for a few minutes, but does no permanent damage. Here, let me demonstrate on Ed.
Huh?
Ted! Why?
And they both watch him collapse, and he's like, oh, yes, that works. So what a great situation, because it's like, is this a police department, or is this like a secret spy network? They don't really explain it. Like, suddenly we become James Bond here, where now we're getting all these high-tech inventions that don't even come to play, except for the cufflinks. The cufflinks are used in a very important pivotal role. So that is the whole reason why they had this character in the movie. This is based on the Police Squad TV show, where, yes, Police Squad had a lab tech inventor coming up with all these inventions for the police force to use, which is amazing. I wish the police officers had such a guy working for them, coming up with all these inventions. And it's actually interesting we talk about that, because that is where our next question is going to be around.
The actual name of this movie is called Naked Gun, from the files of the Police Squad. Now, the Police Squad was a 6-episode mid-season filler, and the most notable thing about this is Leslie Nielsen playing Detective Frank Drebin. He got the promotion in the movie, but it details the adventures of how they solve mysteries, and of course it was all tongue-in-cheek humor. And the biggest problem with this show is the fact that it was limited to what could be shown on television. What we've seen in this movie, they can go and do the hard R jokes. They can have fun with it. They could not do it in the original show. And even though it was 6 episodes, it was canceled after 4.
Now, the show isn't funny. Spoiler alert. Again, this is a spoiler-filled review. Me and Vespor watched all 6 episodes years ago. We were like, oh, this is great. They finally released it on DVD, so look back to when that happened. That's when we got this. And we were like, Vespor, this is not funny. This is actually stupid. It doesn't work for a TV show. It's very dry. It's not working right. And this was 1982, and remember, this movie came out in 1988, so 6 years later, they peeled off the dust on this and made a movie out of it. But this show is a huge, huge ratings disaster. People didn't get it, people didn't like it, and ABC decided that the reason they're going to cancel this is the screen is too small. You can't see all the jokes and sight gags, so that's why people aren't liking it, which is one of the most ridiculous reasons to cancel a show, and a lot of critics said that's the reason they're canceling it. They're going to give it 4 episodes and say the screen is too small and people don't get the jokes. It just did not work as a TV show, but it works so well as a movie that you forget that this was based on a TV show. While they threw some TV show gags in there, especially at the beginning, as the movie went along, it went further and further away from the TV show. So I think it is important to realize this was a TV show, but it got forgotten as a TV show, and it's really more of its own entity as a movie now.
And what we talked about, this leads into our 4th question of why did this work better as a movie and not a TV show?
Well, Vespor, I did touch on it a little bit, but I do have a lot more thoughts on this. Like I said, we watched all 6 episodes of this. The opening credits were great. It was funny. They had a sight gag where it was a guest star of the week, and the joke was always, in this week's episode, blah blah appears as a guest, and then they show the kids getting killed off, and then that's the end. You never see him again. That was probably the funniest joke of the whole TV show.
Tonight's special guest star, Robert Goulet.
Ready! Aim! Fire!
And then the TV show just became like weird Benny Hill type routines with Frank going to all the usual characters. He goes to the shoe shine guy, he goes to the docks, he talks to all these people. It's just not funny. It just doesn't work. And I think the reason it didn't work is because in the movie you can get away with a lot. You can do crude humor, you can do sexual innuendo. They had a lot of that here. You can do a whole soundtrack. You have a higher budget. You can go extreme. You can really just go out there. You can't do that on a very small budget TV show. So you're stuck with like little silly things of the megaphone, please disperse, with him standing there, throwing guns at each other when they're standing there. I mean, ha ha ha, I guess, but it just doesn't work for a TV show. On a movie, when you're doing a grand production, you have all the music behind you, you have the big budget, you have the comedy, you have every location you can imagine, it looks big, it sounds big, the moves are hitting. You have so many sexual and inappropriate jokes in this movie. You can't do any of that stuff on TV, and I think that's what this movie needs. You need to take that little extra step. Sight gags are funny, but without the crude humor, it just doesn't work. And without the dryness that the movie led to, you have a bigger budget, bigger characters, and just bigger production. I think it just made itself work for a movie. It just did not work for a TV show. A lot of people say, oh, the TV show was ahead of its time. No, I really don't think that's true. I think the TV show just did not work as a TV show. There was nothing you can do about it. It had to be a movie, and it continues to be a movie. You see, they're not rebooting comedy shows. They've tried and tried this spoof-type stuff in TV shows. It never works, but movies, it does. And I think there's just something about the budget and being on the big screen that adds a lot more to what you're able to do.
I believe that it was a death of 1,000 cuts. We mentioned some good reasons why, but the biggest death knell to this is that this is a mid-season filler. What's that mean? That means they have next to no time to write, produce, to edit. They are doing this by the seat of their pants. So that means that everything's going to be rushed, unlike in the movie. Yes, they have a scheduled time to do it, but they also have a bigger budget to do it with. And because of that, they're able to get the jokes across, set the scenes up better, and they can do what they really want to do instead of going, well, I thought of this wonderful joke, and then the network says I have to PG it, so I have to rewrite this joke to make it seem banal. It's not a very good look for the TV series, and overall, the movie just did it better because it had all of those factors in it. It had money, it had time, it had production value. Great. It also had big cast names as well. They killed off their guest stars, which is supposed to pull people to watch it, in the opening credits. Looking back on that, that doesn't seem very smart now, does it?
Alright, Vespors, we love the movie, great movie, but even great movies have questionable scenes or not fun moments. So I'm going to ask it, and let's see what our answer is. This is going to be very interesting. What was your least favorite scene of The Naked Gun?
Well, there were a few jokes that fell flat, but the scene that I have always hated, even since the first day I saw it, was the scene where Frank tackles Queen Elizabeth down this long table. I mean, impossibly long. He's just sliding with her legs held up in the air. It's a laugh riot. We're supposed to be. But the problem with this scene is I always found it cringe because he's standing there. There's Vincent Ludwig. He's holding this rifle that he see him take out and go, I'm going to offer this Revolutionary War rifle to the Queen. He sees this. Then these horns are blasted and it faces him so much that he can't see or understand what's going on, and then he runs and tackles the Queen. I always found it very cringe. I mean, I understand the humor behind it, but for me it was just, I couldn't believe it because this movie is filled with stuff where you have to suspend disbelief, and you can do it because it's fun, but this was the one thing where it was kind of in the gray areas that it kind of could happen, it kind of couldn't happen, but the build up and the payoff wasn't that good for me, and I just thought, you know what? Of everything they've done beaver jokes, they've done nightcap jokes, they've done all of this, and this is supposed to be funny. It just seemed tame to me for what they've been doing so far.
Now, a lot of you might be surprised by my least favorite scene because it's supposed to be, oh, it's so touching, it's so wonderful, it's so whatever. I don't like it. You know, it's a silly wrap up to the whole relationship between Drevin and Jane. So at the end of the movie, and we'll get to the end soon, the watch is activated again, and then Jane is now the one that is set to kill Frank Drebin because the watch was activated as, well, we'll get to that scene in a second. So she's holding the gun, I must kill Frank Drebin, and then Drebin gets all sappy and emotional. Jane, no, you can't do this. I love you, and we're gonna get married. I even bought you a ring. And the whole entire stadium is watching as Frank Drebin is trying to snap Jane out of the hypnotic trance, and he's just loving her. She's shaking the gun. I must kill you. I must kill you. And I was like, this is so stupid. Like, if it's that easy to break the trance, then it's stupid. You know, it's such a dumb plot device. They couldn't think of, like, how are we gonna end this? How are we gonna make her sappy? So after 2 days knowing each other, they're madly in love with each other, going to get married, and he's able to snap her out of it without her even firing, whatever, because he's lovey-dovey to her. The scene itself is funny where everyone starts to make up and is so emotional from his tear-jerking pleas to Jane to not kill him. But it was just such a stupid ending to what was such a wonderful movie. I did not like it. I thought it was weak. I thought, oh, come on, have them have like a happy ending where they're both, going off together. Have them, kissing and like so happy. No, we got to throw in he programmed Jane to kill him stuff. I hated it, and I just hate how he has to do this lovey-dovey stuff to break her out of it. I know Cole Rance is unloving and black-hearted, but I just don't like the scene. I think in a comedy like this, it was a silly way to end it. Yes, they add comedy into it, but I didn't like that as a solution to the movie. I thought it needed a little better.
Now, moving on to question number 6. This is a great question. What moment do you think is the most dated and will be understood least by younger generations?
It's a tough question because there are actually some dated stuff. Not most of the stuff still works today, but there are some dated stuff. They have Weird Al, but that still works. He's still pertinent. Queen Elizabeth's still pertinent. What's not pertinent is, believe it or not, at the beginning of the basketball scene, they have a very funny moment where they're showing all these broadcasters who are behind the play-by-play counter. And we just watched this recently with my nephews. They had no idea who any of these people were. It was like, oh, I don't get the joke. It was Kurt Gordy, Jim Palmer, Tim McCarver, Mel Allen, Dick Enberg, Dick Vitale, and Dr. Joy's brothers. All of these, besides Dr. Joy's brothers, were very famous sports commentators, and none of them are really active or around today. So you're like, Tim McCarver, I know who Tim McCarver is. He was the Mets announcer. I know him very well. I know who Dick Vitale is. He's one of the most famous college basketball announcers. Mel Allen, This Week in Baseball, one of the most famous people. But I don't think today's audience would know who any of these people are. Even Dr. Joy's brothers, one of the most famous television and radio psychologists. She was all over the place in the 80s and early 90s. No one would even know. Dr. Joy's brothers, I don't get the joke. It's a very funny joke, making fun of the fact that baseball always prided itself on, we have great announcers, and look how important we are. And Naked Gun pretty much just made fun of the fact we're going to throw in every random popular, at the time, announcer we can think of to cameo. So what a brilliant sight gag, but I don't think kids would know who any of these people are. So it did not age well only because these people aren't pertinent anymore, but that's going to happen with anything as time goes.
That is honestly what really dates this movie, is its guest stars. And in this case, what I think is very dated is actually these tyrants. Most of them are dead. Gorbachev. These people don't know who Mikhail Gorbachev is. They don't remember Reagan going,
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
And they don't remember Gaddafi. So most of these people are not going to know who they are. And some more people that were on here that dated is, believe it or not, Reggie Jackson. I loved him. He was one of my favorite players back in the day. But you know what? People today that watch baseball have no idea who he is. And even Jay Johnson, another baseball player, was in it. They also had real umpires from back then, so if you watched baseball back then, you might actually remember some of these guys. So with that being said, it was pretty much all these important people they threw in here to make them guest stars that really dates the movie. Most of these jokes are still pertinent because they're kept to every man level. Everybody experiences some sort or other of this type of sight gag, from Looney Tunes to cartoons. We've seen it before, and it's still fresh in our mind.
All right, so now we come to the fun final question of our Q&A, the climax of the movie. And every movie has a climax that wraps everything up. The climax of the movie is a baseball game, and we're now going to both, in our own way, explain what we liked about the climax of the movie. So now it is time to ask you, Vespor, very important question. What is your thoughts on the climax of the movie, The Naked Gun?
I feel that the climax of this movie was perfectly done. Everything built in to the climax, and it worked excellently because here's something most people don't know. The climax of the movie was written first, and the rest of the movie was written to the climax. So that's why everything worked so perfectly to get to that climax. After seeing the movie, you'll understand why the climax is just so great. So many sight gags. They did not stop at all. If there was a zany moment that could be done in the climax where Frank's trying to search out the player that's a killer, that's going to shoot the queen. The best part about the climax of this movie is the fact that everything comes together perfectly. The jokes are top notch. Almost all of your guest stars are coming together here. All the announcers, all the baseball players, all the silliness. Especially when Frank gets on the field after taking the place of the opera singer Riccio Palazza, who, by the way, this is not actually the real singer, just letting you know. He gets out there, totally screws up the national anthem.
Whose bright stripes and broad stars in the perilous night, o'er the ramparts we watch,
the police are coming down to arrest him. He runs away. It's marvelous. Takes over another umpire. And you know what? It's absolutely beautiful as he gets out there and finds that they're cheering him on because this is the important Angels game. And he's doing everything in his power, patting them down, trying to figure it out. But the thing about it is, though, when you look at it, those uniforms are usually pretty tight. And if you had a gun, I'm pretty certain you'd be able to see it on them. The whole fact of the matter is, it's just the absurdity of the situation, which leads finally to the death of Ludwig in the most silly way possible. Falls over the edge, then's run over by a truck, then a steamroller, and then a marching band. I mean, they do not hold back on this at all. They even make fun of the fact during the 80s, it's like, oh my god, you killed the man. And what Frank did was use that little cuff that knocks him out. He's like, no, he'll wake up in just a few minutes and we'll take him in. And then he falls over for all that to happen with. It's great. As a matter of fact, he misses Reggie Jackson. It bounces up, hits a big fat woman on the top deck who falls on Reggie Jackson and stops him from murdering the queen. I mean, this is just explosion of comedy in its best form. I absolutely loved it. It was probably some of the best scenes you'll see in any Naked Gun movie ever, and I absolutely loved it, and it was Vespor approved.
Yeah, the climax is brilliant. It is amazing, and you can definitely see that they built this as the whole notion of the movie, because everything else seems inserted in. They took a lot of jokes from the TV. They took a lot of scenes that were just time filler. You can see they really focused on this baseball scene at the end of the movie, and there's a reason for that. Like Vespor said, it was written before any of the other movie was made. We're going to have a plot to kill the queen, and it's going to be at a baseball game, and everything else will be written around that. And it is brilliant. Frank Drebin, as the umpire, is searching every player. He's touching him in the crotch. He's putting his hands all over them. and then he finds nothing, and they're like, Frank, it's almost the 7th inning stretch. You have to avoid that 3rd out. So then all of a sudden he's calling balls, they're booing him. He doesn't want them to end the play, so he's throwing balls in the air so they can't catch it. Now, stupidly, the other team is doing things they shouldn't be doing. One's trying to score home, and the catcher holds 4 balls, and he very clearly gets him by blocking the play, and Frank's like, safe. And then the other guy tries to steal second, and then Frank runs over there and starts throwing the ball at the player, and then the other umpires get involved and start throwing the balls at Frank. It is hilarious. And then Frank takes out a gun.
You're the boss. You're right. I was saying you're right.
And then Reggie, they push the button, and he starts walking like a robot. And what does Frank do? He tackles him, causing one of the most ridiculous all-out baseball brawls ever. Everybody starts beating everybody up. Bodies are flying everywhere. Everyone's punching. A chair comes out. Reggie crawls under and he goes like his robot mode. I must kill the queen. And then, yes, the scene that Vespor mentioned where he fires it out.
Whoops.
It is so hilarious. Then they have a screen showing all these great moments in baseball. How about that? As you see a head come off the guy as he catches the ball, a tiger then attacks one of the guys, the guy rolls over the car, and the expressions the guys are giving in the booth are hilarious. I mean, it is just such an over-the-top scene. It makes the whole movie. You can have the whole movie just based on this, like 10 or 15 minutes or 20 minutes, however long the scene was. It is hilarious. And then, unfortunately, the Jane moment happens, which I think is silly. Like, everything up to where Ludwig gets killed is great, and then you have the silly Jane moment that breaks it up. But wow, what a climax. It was all building up to this, and it's like some movies get worse as they go along. This movie gets better because this scene makes this movie amazing. You have got to watch this baseball scene if you're not going to watch any other moment of The Naked Gun. All right, Vespor, so that was our 7 questions for our Q&A on The Naked Gun, 1988. What a brilliant movie, Vespor. Such an amazing, amazing comedic film that everybody has to see. If you've not seen this film yet, you gotta. But we here on Vespors Retro Reviews always give our final thoughts and reviews of everything we talk about here, and this is no different. Even though there's a Back in Time, we do reviews during our Back in Time. So Vespor, our comedy leader, not to be confused with Ludwig, who has nothing on Vespor here. What are your final thoughts of The Naked Gun movie and rating?
Naked Gun is one of those classic movies that's still pertinent today, with jokes that are still great. And like we talked about before, the only thing dated about these movies are the guest stars, who are supposed to mean something to the people watching them. Thankfully, those guest stars are kind of dated in a way as such that in the opening scene, you know they're a bad deal because they want to bring down America, so it doesn't matter who they are. And the commentators really don't do much, so if you don't know who they are, it doesn't take away from the movie. But that being said, this is just a great movie, and it far surpasses what the Police Squad show tried to do. This is what they wanted to do. This is the type of fun they wanted to give us, but due to budget and restrictions of TV at the time, they couldn't do it. And they were raunchy, but in a tasteful way in this. And there was plenty of sight gags, there's plenty of one-liners, plenty of dad jokes, as the youngins like to say today. And it was just a great, fun movie that I liked from beginning to end, with only a few jokes falling flat for me. And because of that, to me, it's one of the greatest comedies of all time. And with that being said, I'm going to give this a 4.5 stars on it. I think it deserves it. Is it the greatest comedy to me? No. But it is one of my most favorite comedies. I think anybody that has a funny bone is going to laugh their butts off watching this movie.
I think this is one of the greatest movies ever seen. Everyone who is watching this has to see this movie. The sequels, forget it, all right? And even the new movie, that's up to you. This is the greatest comedy movie of the 80s. It really is. It is an amazing movie. Better than Airplane, better than Spaceball. I love those movies, but this is the pinnacle of what a funny movie is. Everything just works so well in movie format, and it's so hard to believe that this is based on the same TV show that me and Vespor really hated. Like, we were not laughing, it was stupid, it was dumb. It's written by the same people. It has Leslie Nielsen reprising his role and it just all worked so perfectly. Every scene, every moment, it just plays out. The beginning of the movie is trying too much to be the TV show. You know, not the opening scene, that is great. Then him fighting all the terrorists and all the evil leaders, that's great. But then it gets to, he arrives at the airport, and then it's all just gag after gag based on the TV show. Once we move past that, like when we get into Ludwig's office and then, you know, the interview, that's when the movie has a different feel. Now it feels like a movie. So really consider the movie starting for the first time when we had that press conference where Frank was waterlogged. That's sort of when the movie starts, because all the jokes are different after that, and it works so brilliantly. The car chase, one of my favorite moments ever in a movie. It is hilarious. I laugh every single time. Stephanie was brilliant. The stale and very serious instructor, and then Frank just like, yeah, go for it. And this doctor who all of a sudden becomes a villain, but he was just a regular doctor before that. We forget that fact, and then he's killed in this horrific explosion, and it's like, oh well, nothing to see here. And then it works to the baseball scene, which is so great. But we also can't forget one of our other favorite scenes, which is Frank pretty much destroying Ludwig's beautiful apartment of all this great stuff, the paintings and the Ming vases, as a piano song is playing and he's crawling outside, dealing with all the nonsense out there. It is so funny in this movie. And yes, I am going to give this 5 stars. I think on my scale, and me and Vespor don't talk about our ratings before. I say this all the time. I want that understood. And we allow whatever our ratings are. That's part of the conditions of our show. Whatever our ratings are, we stand by it. That's it. I am giving this movie a 5 star. I think it is one of the best, most funniest, most comedic movies of our time. You have got to see The Naked Gun from the Files of Police Squad. You got to see it all the way through. You got to see it more than once. Not every joke is understood the first time. You got to keep watching this, and you got to focus on the baseball scene. It is one of the greatest moments of script writing. They did such a great job, and you can see the rest of the plot was shoehorned in around this baseball scene, but so what? It doesn't matter because it all works so well. Everything connected so properly to this wonderful climax. Every actor great. The music is great. They even have a music video in the middle of this. I mean, what more can you ask for? Naked Gun from the Files of the Police Squad, 1988. One of my favorite movies of all time. I must have seen this movie hundreds of times. I love it. See it, enjoy it, laugh with it. And that is all, Vespor. I think we have covered our Q&A session of The Naked Gun quite well here.
And as always with our Q&As, we ask that if you haven't seen it, go and watch it. We're giving our thoughts. Now, that being said, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and
ring that bell. We'll definitely have some more Back in Times and some more Q&As in the near future.
And, guys, before you go see this new Naked Gun movie, because we recorded this before it, make sure you see the original so you understand what they're talking about when they reference this.
Yes, because it definitely is going to be connected to the original movies. You don't want to miss out. Maybe we'll do a Retro Done Right or Wrong episode if it turns out to be worth the time. We'll see. But check it out. But don't forget to check out the original series first. Very important. And that is all for this session of Back in Time. We'll take another trip back in time with you sometime soon. Thank you, everybody. And let's
go for it, Stephanie.
That's right. See you all next time. Goodbye, everybody.